Have you ever wanted to pursue something but felt like a fraud for going after it? A new job, starting a band, writing a book? How about giving a talk on a big stage? About 5 years ago, I was writing a fiction novel. Me, a pharmacist by training, but then a stay-at-home mom with a part-time position in academia. I had recently completed a year of taking care of a spouse with cancer. My children were young, and I was filled to the brim with this sense of wanting to burst. But with what? I didn't know. On some days, it felt like creativity, and on others, pure, unadulterated anxiety. On one particular day, I left a shopping cart full of groceries in the supermarket and walked out of the store in a panic. My creative outlet has always been writing. And during what was a tumultuous time in my life, I channeled that energy into writing a fiction novel. There were days when I'd write for hours, and days when I couldn't. Days when I loved that book, and days when I was terrified of its very existence. And on this day in the supermarket, when none of the pieces seemed to fit, I felt the long distance from where I was to the front door. I felt my fingers and toes start to go numb, the sense of nausea overtake my body. I couldn't catch my breath. And I knew if I didn't leave at that very moment, the worst might happen. I couldn't tell you what the worst was, though. And that's a funny thing about anxiety. It's often irrational. The American Psychological Association defines imposter syndrome as an intense feeling of self-doubt. And often, those with imposter syndrome suffer anxieties related to their skills, talents, and accomplishments, and instead silently hold on to a persistent fear of being outed as a fraud. Now, this can apply to anyone, even a stay-at-home mom missing the excitement of creative intellectual output, trying to transform herself into something new. So let's hear it. By a show of hands, how many of us have experienced imposter syndrome at some point in our lives? Now let's reframe the concept and make that thought the imposter in our heads. We'll counteract it like this. Think back on how many versions of yourself you've been. A new student, a first-time parent, a new employee, published your first paper, gotten your first promotion. Considering this will help you take stock of your skill set that's going to push you forward to your next set of challenges. And I'll give you a hint. Imposter syndrome isn't always the scenario in the grocery store. Sometimes it's a nagging doubt that says, I can't do this. 2 years ago, I met my creative partner. His name is Fred. Fred's a project manager. He's also a creative hobbyist who writes, paints, and plays music. We met as friends that had writing as the common interest, but soon discovered we shared a creative goal that was different than producing a novel. Together, we started a thriving literary magazine, a project that has inspired us, delighted us, and pushed us significantly outside of our comfort zones. When our magazine was in its infancy, we were scared to be exposed for the imposters we felt ourselves to be. I mean, what real skills did we have to pursue this project? What were we doing entering this literary world, me as a pharmacist and Fred as a project manager? It was then that we realized the labels we place on ourselves are only as restrictive as we allow them to be. And further, no one can teach you how to break out of a comfort zone. You do it by going through it, and the more you do it, the easier it becomes. Just think back on how many times you've done it. All of our lives have seen numerous versions of ourselves, and each of them have contributed to who we are today in terms of attitudes, abilities, and skill sets. When Fred and I first inventoried our own lives and learned that our ultimate goal was a big, giant, creative one that started with a literary magazine, we were able to break through the imposter syndrome mindset. We embraced being multifaceted humans with a deep passion for the creative arts. Here's how we did it. We sat down early on in our process and formed a list of our technical and soft skills. And in doing so, we learned that imposter syndrome was a detour on our map, not a roadblock. And life stocks us up for the trip. Speaking of trips, I'll never forget our first trip to a major literary conference. We were surrounded by some of the world's most high-profile writers and publishers. We were stocked up with our bookmarks and stickers. And when meeting new people, we'd make these purposefully self-demeaning introductions. We'd shake hands. It looked something like this. Oh, we're small. Oh, we're not that good yet. We've only published one issue. Up against our idols, we felt that sense of imposter syndrome looming yet again. But luckily, there was a moment at that conference where Fred and I pulled it together because we realized we weren't that sense of emptiness we felt. We were new. And everyone, even the best in the world, is new when they begin. So picture that newness like an empty basket. Let's fill it by analyzing the versions of ourselves we've been, and together we'll create an intangible basket of confidence. This basket is a representation of all the skills that make you uniquely qualified to pursue your creative passions. And our baskets will be handy boosters when we're going after a big goal. Maybe that goal is self-publishing a book. Want to host your own art show? How about blow the roof off the music industry? Anything is possible. Got your imaginary basket handy? Great, let's begin. The basket is your tool to combat imposter syndrome. It's the reminder that you aren't only one degree or some job experience. You are a sum total of everything you've encountered in life. In fact, if you have a creative passion, a big dream, a giant goal, you'll often find that inventorying your own skill set makes you the best candidate for the position. For example, a cashier job you might have had, consider how it jump-started your interpersonal communication skills. An earlier internet-based position might have made it a whole lot easier for you to create your website. See where I'm going with this? We may not think we have the skills to go boldly towards some big creative venture, but if we're impassioned, we're already on our way. Life skills are both cumulative and transferable. Here are 5 things you already have that belong in your basket. The first item going into our basket is self-doubt. Stephen Pressfield tells us that a little self-doubt can be a good thing because it means we aspire to something. When Fred and I first embarked on our creative journey, we knew that our self-doubt meant we had stumbled upon a great challenge. And conversely, Pressfield says, the counterfeit innovator is wildly self-confident. So take that little bit of self-doubt and put it in your basket. It means you have a creative passion to get to. Second, let's sprinkle in a little bit of the life dust we have on us. Both Fred and I have several decades of work experience behind us, and life breeds experience. Together, we realized we were a combined skill set that encompassed experience in writing, editing, project management, blogging, website creation, and more. We took the approach to our literary company as we might not know how to do everything, but we know what we have to do next. And what we don't know, we're willing to learn. And so far, that approach has worked well for us, allowing us to assess our skills, evaluate and celebrate our successes, and temper our risk. Third, we're going to add some grit to our baskets. Our experience has made us into what psychologist and writer Angela Duckworth calls gritty. And Duckworth writes that grit is this magical combination of passion and perseverance that provides determination and direction. It's the force that keeps us moving in the direction of our goals and dreams. And both passion and perseverance are necessary to the equation. Without one or the other, you could fall short. Fred and I scored high on Duckworth's grit scale. And although we weren't publishing novels, we were writing until we discovered the true nature of our creative goal. And Duckworth says it's not unusual to become grittier with age. And that often has to do with being able to hone in on your exact passion. Fourth, we're going to put some failure into our basket. And this is an important addition because what we view as failure is often just a mindset. We can redirect failure into something much more productive. Rather, look at life as a series of skill accumulation leading to a bigger goal. Maybe you haven't failed. Maybe you're still in the learning process. Maybe you're untangling a bigger dream. Fred and I have written many novels that never saw lives beyond our computer hard drives. And if we had seen these as failures, we could have given up on writing. But when we redirected them into practice, it turned out that our literary magazine was just waiting for us to start it. Embracing failure touches on the Latin concept of amor fati, where we're led to believe that every moment in our lives contain value. And none of the time you spend on non-successful dreams lacks significance. It's all been part of a necessary skill and wisdom accumulation and coming closer to a more purposeful you. And as David Lynch says, keep your eye on the donut, not on the hole. Finally, we're going to add some you to our baskets. That's right, you. You have enormous value and potential simply by being yourself. For example, have you ever spent time in another country? That extra cultural influence makes you more likely to creatively succeed. There is no one that has that set of everything that makes you, well, you. You are your own highly defined, unique perspective. So after all that, the question now becomes not, is there something in your creative basket, but how well stocked are you for the trip? It's your hobbies, your interests, your job skills, degrees, parenting, places you've lived, things you've witnessed. It's culture, society, hours. It's your grit. The driving force behind our current literary magazine was a desire to give back to the writing community. And Fred and I are active in writing communities on multiple social media outlets and online forums. We have a passion to share outstanding talent with the world around us. And we incorporated skills we had learned throughout the years to make our dream happen. Now, we're surrounded by like-minded people all seeking out their dreams too, which is, guess what? A huge force in combating imposter syndrome. Fred is a real person, but he could also be a metaphor. Fred is a support system. And when he and I began to fully believe in the unique and creative abilities of the other, we started to believe in ourselves. Life is grander than what we often see or than what is visible directly in front of us. If our dreams don't feel like they're working out, perhaps we're not clearly seeing the bigger picture. Following your big, passionate dream often involves more than just diving into your current hobby. It involves broadening your scope, widening your view, and taking an inventory of all the technical and soft skills you have at your disposal. Finding what expands you takes an assessment of the large sandbox that will keep you engaged, interested, and playing over the long haul. Your basket is your key to your big picture. I now fill mine with skills, big and small, experiences, and a grateful heart knowing that anxiety is only as big as I let it become. So take this trip called life with those that fully believe in you. You'll start to see your own magic. Life wants to say yes to you. Will you say yes to yourself? Thank you.